Hello, worship band, and welcome to another edition of Music Theory for Worship Band. Today, I'd like to take on the idea of melody or melodic line. And I don't necessarily mean the melody of a song like that the singer sings, because you all are instrumentalists. Instead, I'm thinking about single note passages that you all play. If you're an electric guitarist, you're waiting for that gap in between a line of music to play a melodic line before the singer comes in again. If you're a keyboardist, remember we're not plodding along the rhythm. There are other instruments that are taking care of the rhythm, like the drums, the kick drum, the bass guitar, even the acoustic guitar is handling a lot of the rhythm things. Instead, you're listening for those gaps to play some kind of melodic line in. It could be maybe an arpeggio or something like that. Well, if we're going to play melodic lines, we have to have a little understanding of how music works. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about what's called the circle of fifths. This is something that I'm sure you have seen before. It's really just a graphic organizer of how musical keys work. It's really ingenious. At the top of the circle, you find the key of C major has no sharps or flats. In other words, you can just play all of the notes in the C major scale. You don't have to play any sharps or flats. If you're thinking in terms of piano, you're thinking all white notes at this point, no black notes. To explain this circle a little bit, the outermost circle all the way around are major keys. The inside slices here are minor keys, and those are called relative minors. They're called relative minors because, for instance, right here we have C major and its relative is A minor because the key of A minor has no sharps or flats. It has all natural notes. An easy way to remember how to find a relative minor is to start with the name of the major key, like the key of C, and count down by three. So you could go C, B, A, and get to the relative minor. Well, if we work our way around the circle, around the outermost edge, you can see that the key of G has one sharp, the key of D has two sharps, key of A has three sharps, and so on and so forth. So that is what's called the circle of fifths. It's really easy to remember. Each one of those positions are five apart. So if you start with C major and count up five, C, D, E, F, the next key is G, having one sharp. If you start at G and count up five, G, A, B, C, D, the next key is D that has two sharps. It's a really nice way to arrange music. But why do we have sharps and flats in the first place? Why do we have those what are called accidentals? Well, here's just a little reminder of why we have sharps and flats. Thinking back to the key of C, if we have all natural notes, all white notes on the piano, the musical formula for every major key looks like this: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Or if you want to think about it the way that I learned it so many years ago, two steps and a half step, three steps and a half step. If you look at that letter name wise at the bottom in the key of C, the distance between C and D is a whole step. The distance from D to E is a whole step. But if you're thinking like the piano, the distance from E to F is only a half step because there's not any black key in between. E and F are two white keys on the piano. The distance from F to G is a whole step. The distance from G to A is a whole step. The distance from A to B is a whole step. But the distance from B to C is a half step because thinking on the piano again, on the piano keyboard, between the note B and the note C, there's no black note. So why do we have sharps and flats? Well, if we were to change this starting note to a different starting note, say the key of G, and put G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we tried to work out these whole steps and half steps, we would need to raise or put in a sharp on F in order to keep the whole steps and half steps in the same pattern. So really, we're looking at this same pattern across all of the major keys. There's a different pattern that works for a minor key. Actually, minor key for me is much more interesting, I think. We don't use it a lot in worship music, but there are actually like three sets of patterns to learn for minor key. So I won't even begin to talk to you about that now, but just wanted to talk a little bit about melody. So we've got this pattern, this musical pattern of intervals that repeats itself across all musical keys. We have this circle of fifths graphic organizer that can help us remember what the sharps and flats are. Otherwise, you can just memorize what the sharps and flats are. So here on this screen, I have created just an order of sharps. Sharps, all of the sharps are five positions apart from one another. So the first sharp, for instance, in the key of G is F sharp. If you wanted to know what the next sharp coming was for the key of D with two sharps, you could just count up five positions. F, G, A, B, C is the next sharp. You can memorize those. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp. That's up to six sharps. The order of flats are based on four positions apart. So if you started with the first flat, which works for the key of F, is B flat, and then if you counted up four, B, C, D, E flat is the next flat. And you could repeat that by counting up four each time. Or you could just memorize B, E, A, D, G, C flat. Those are the order of the flats for flat keys. All right. I know I have given you a terrible lot of things, and you probably won't remember all of what I've talked about. For piano players, we tend to think about white keys and black keys. For us guitar players, we memorize a scale pattern, right? And we don't always think about, hey, this is a sharp, and this is a flat. Instead, we memorize an order, a fret order pattern that we can play, either a major scale or pentatonic scale or something like that. But this is what's going on in the background, and this will help us as we play those instruments that have melodic lines. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.